Hey animal enthusiasts and pet hobbyists, it's Joel here again, and sorry if my voice sounds a little different. I got sick recently and now I have a sore throat. But yeah, one of my commentators asked if I could give a aquarium tour of my tank and showcase what I have in here. So yeah, I thought I could do that for you. It's also been a while since I've done my freshwater tank update. You can see the plants, they've actually grown. My Nubius has a flower over here. But yeah, so first thing I'm going to start off with the animals in this tank. So for the most part, it's filled with mosquito fish. Mosquito fish is probably the highest number of fish I have in here. I probably have around 12 maybe, more than that. But yeah, it's okay to have a lot of guppies as long as they stay relatively small. These guys don't get over 1.5 inches. Based on what I've measured for them. And yeah, second fish is neon tetras. I have about 3 in here. Most people would say that you should keep them in around a group of 6, but then again, you gotta accommodate for the tank size and the amount of fish that are already in here. And they do feel safe whenever they're around the big school of guppies, so they're not stressed. And also, if you've seen that video where I tried to save my neon tetra from dying because it was sick, you can see this is the same fish that's right there. It's actually, it looks like it has a little bit of scoliosis. I don't even know if that's common for fish, but yeah, you can see the back, it's kind of crooked, but he seems to be doing fine. He's healthy, he's eating. The time that I tried to save him, he was actually hiding in the dark and didn't want to be seen and stuff, so yeah, he's not doing that odd behavior anymore. Third fish are my black neon tetras. So the black neon tetra, I used to have 3 in here, but 2 of them started nipping at my other fish. They were like very aggressive. This guy was doing good. And then they started like fighting each other, nipping each other. I think one of them got an infection and died. And then this one's like the bad boy of the tank. He's the largest fish I have in here. But yeah, he doesn't seem to be stressed out. I'm probably gonna go give him some new friends because he's the only one in here. Maybe like 2 more black neon tetras for him or her. And then the next fish I have in here, I don't know where he is or she. Oh, there she is. Or he. That's my otocinclus catfish. I have 2. They like to hang out in the back a lot. For the most part, they're like mainly nocturnal. Sometimes I rarely see them in the day. So here she is. I have some lettuce in here just in case he or she wants to eat. And then, for the most part, they eat just like any type of algae that's growing on your glass or your decorations. And then if you, they like to eat cucumbers. And if you've seen my video, I've tried to feed them algae wafers and they'll eat that. But sometimes they don't really, the other fish will take over it and not give these guys a chance to eat it, so yeah. And then another fish that you guys might be wondering about that I haven't mentioned is my hillstream loach. So I got it about a year ago, and it was, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but the time that me and my cousin went to the pet store to get otocinclus, we saw a hillstream loach. And me and my cousin thought it was a cool fish, and that was actually my first ever impulse buy. So I had done like very little research on them. That was actually, I think, my first time ever seeing that type of fish. But I was just like looking at the way the pet store arranged the fish tank for it. So I tried to use that, and it didn't go so well. I mean, I kept it for a year, but I think what ultimately got him is this is a tropical freshwater fish tank. Those guys, they like cold water body types. They're probably around, they should have the fish tank around maybe 60, 65 degrees around there. And this, I think because it's the summertime right now, I think what ultimately got him is the fact that the temperature is raising so high. You can see it's almost 80 degrees in here. And what happens is, I had an air stone on for it. Air stones, they aerate the water, they keep oxygen in it, And what happens is I have a lot of these plants. Adding oxygen to the tank would mean for the plants to start to die off because they need CO2. But hill stream loaches, they need rich oxygenated water. And what happens with the warm water is that it doesn't hold as much oxygen as cold water does. So if the water is really warm, then the hill stream loaches can't obtain the oxygen through their gills, and they could essentially suffocate and die. And I think that's what happened. He liked to stay around the rocks in the back and I never saw him again after that. Usually he might have died behind the rocks and my snails must have eaten it and decomposed of it. So some tips for keeping a hill stream loach: I would recommend having a lot of air stones. Aerating the water is very important. Keeping the temperature at around 65 degrees. And the reason I have this filter right here is because instead of the back, on the side of the tank, it would have the flow coming all around the water, pushing it and then circulating back around. And in the air stone in the back would make the bubbles circulate again, so that would create a lot more flow. And for hill stream loaches, I would recommend higher flow because it stimulates their natural environment in the wild. And then right now I actually don't have the air stone on because I'm using it to mix some salt water for my reef tank. But yeah, right now I don't really have it on that much because the plants, they don't need oxygen. The fish provide the plants with CO2 and then the plants provide the fish with oxygen. And it's basically a cycle. So yeah, another tip for keeping hill stream loaches, I would recommend having a specific loach tank. Maybe fish that come from the same environment with the cold water type. Maybe like, I think what I wanted to do one time with my hill stream loach, because as I was keeping it, I realized that it was not a good tank for it. So I was thinking about making another tank just for the hill stream loach because I felt kind of bad for it. Unfortunately, it died before I could even do that. But what I wanted to do was have like maybe a 20-gallon long or 30-gallon long. I think the minimum tank size for those guys is probably around 30, which is another reason why I shouldn't have gotten it. But 30-gallon long, and then having power heads on the side with a lot of rocks. I think pH for them should be around neutral. I used Easy Balance Plus to keep the pH neutral. Maybe slightly alkaline is okay for them too. With some rocks, I might raise the pH a little bit. But yeah, and then so just keeping the flow high, keeping the oxygen rich, and pH neutral, temperature 65, and feeding. So what I used to feed my hill stream loach was, for the most part, algae wafers. He loved these. He would also consume the flake food that I would give the guppies that would fall to the bottom, so he was kind of like a cleanup crew. And every now and then I would see him, you know, eating off the glass or the parts of decorations that had algae growing on it. I wasn't sure if he'd actually consume the algae, but yeah, hill stream loaches are actually omnivores, and they'll consume bloodworms, brine shrimp, and other meaty foods. But yeah, those are for the most part my tips. They're not aggressive like towards freely swimming fish. They're not aggressive towards them. Maybe they were a little bit territorial when it came to feeding, because when I would drop an algae wafer in there, the hill stream would be the first to try to eat it, and then the guppies would start nipping at the wafer, but he would like try to defend it because it was its own food. But yeah, so if you're keeping a hill stream specific tank, then I would probably put more than one. They probably do better in small groups. And yeah. Hill streams also need, like any fish, pristine water, keeping the ammonia 0, nitrite 0. Nitrates could raise every now and then, but for the most part, water changes should remove that. What I do is I do weekly water changes. I do around 30-40% maybe sometimes, and yeah, for the most part it's weekly. And yeah, when you're keeping a planted tank like this, the plants actually use a lot of the nitrates as nutrients and food, so sometimes I don't like to remove too much of the fish waste because they use that similar to fertilizer. So I think from that I'm gonna just go on to my plants. So a species of plants right here, this is my Cryptocoryne parva. It's actually grown quite a bit since I got it. They are slow growers though. It's covering the cave. When I first got it, it wasn't covering the little cave that I made back there. But yeah, I really love the way the leaves are shaped. It provides a home or a safe for small guppies that are just born, fry. And yeah, the dying leaves are usually consumed by the bladder snails, such as that in the back. Next plant I have is my Amazon sword right here. And this one, I didn't even think it was going to grow that big or that much. I remember I tried out an Amazon sword for the first time, but that was like when I first started this tank. I was probably like 3 months old, and it died out. It was probably because it wasn't well established yet. My lighting wasn't that good. But yeah, now that I have a more established tank, this Amazon sword is growing like crazy. I should probably start trimming it pretty soon. And yeah, the substrate that I use is actually just regular gravel. I think this came from a turtle pack because I used to house a little turtle in here. But yeah, there's like, it's not plant specific growing substrate. If you could provide a deep enough substrate of gravel for the plants to place their roots in there, then they should be fine, as long as you supplement some or as long as you have fish in here that could provide waste for it. And the only other thing I supplement for the plants is API's leaf zone. I put that in there for the most part like once a week, or 5 milliliters per 10 gallons. So yeah, and the plants seem to love that. I mean, they're flourishing with it. I don't use root tabs. I've never tried it out. So from the next plant I'm gonna go is my Anubias nana. This is like probably the oldest plant in here. I started it out like all the way in the back. Now it's growing all the way in the front, and just leaf after leaf it's just growing. This is my first time actually ever getting a flower from it too. So I have 2 Anubias in here. This is the first one I got, and this is the second one. I actually had this one originally placed in the back of the driftwood, but then I attached it to a little crevice right there, and now it's just growing off the side. And I really love the way the roots have that little vine effect on the rocks and just attaching to everything. Really looks nice. Yeah, these are, in my opinion, the easiest plants ever to take care of. Like, I really didn't need to supplement anything. I literally just placed this one on the gravel and then it started growing. This one, I didn't even need to attach it to gravel. Just really love these plants, and the leaves, they look amazing. Our Anubias like to have lower, dimmer light than most plants. You can see there's algae growing on the leaves, but as long as you keep like snails and cleanup crew to clean off that algae, then this should be fine. These guys seem to be doing okay. It's not much algae growing on them. But yeah, so this is my other Anubias. I believe this species is called Anubia congensis, I believe. And this has been growing very well in my tank, but the leaves get huge. You can see those really thin stems right here actually belong to it, and it grows even out of the tank. Sometimes the light might burn them out, but I remove it. It's kind of right here. It looks to be doing fine with the snail on it. But yeah, even there's like a leaf right here growing out of the back. Sorry about the mess right here. I removed some of the my equipment because I was doing a water change in my saltwater tank right now. But Zanubias congensis is for the most part pretty easy to care for. The light right here is actually dying out. I think that's natural. Yeah, giving him some moderate to high light seems to be doing fine for it. I grew it in like the corner of the driftwood and the gravel, and yeah, you can see the base of the root right there. Seems to be doing fine. My next plant is actually not fully aquatic. Maybe it can live in full aquatic, but this is a pothos. What I wanted to do was having the vine-like pothos hang down from the tank and just run along right here. But then once I bought this species, I realized that it was a different species and it wasn't the hanging type, because I bought this one to put into my fire belly toad tank, and I just had some excess left over. I thought, you know, might as well just put it on the fish tank, and it wasn't the hanging type. So, but yeah, it seems to be doing really good. There's only one die off right here. It's been growing some tinier leaves, such as right here, and that one's actually fully submerged. You can see it. Mosquito fish blocking. Oh, there it is. But yeah, so the light from the reflection of the glass seems to be what's getting it, and along with the natural light, or the light that comes from my room when I turn it on, that's really low. It seems to be okay with dimmer light. It gets most of the nutrients from the nitrates that come from the fish waste and the fish food. But yeah, so for the most part, these plants are essentially my filters. The only fake plants I have in here are this one in the corner. I just use that to fill up a little bit of space. Is over here in the corner. This one I actually feel like it might be dangerous because you can see the leaves are kind of like pointy shaped. Seems like the fish might cut themselves, but I haven't had a problem with them. You can see a snail. One plant that I forgot to mention was actually my water wisteria. So a while ago, I think a year ago, I had it inside. You can see that little barrel decoration. I put the roots planted inside there and attached it to the bottom of the gravel, and it just started growing like crazy. It was flourishing. I think I got it like a 5-inch stem at first, and then it started growing above the tank and started growing on the surface, and then all of a sudden, about a month ago, it just started dying off. Saw the leaves started to turn brown, or the stem started to turn brown, and the leaves started getting brown spots, and then it just started to get eaten by the snails. But I don't think it was the snails that were killing it. I think it just started dying off for some reason. So I guess from here I could go on to lighting. So lighting, you don't really see many aquariums using hoods anymore. I most of the time see LEDs. So I have this AQUARIUM hood made specifically for 10-gallon. The tube I use is this AQUARIUM full spectrum daylight 18-inch 15-watt tube. Full spectrum daylight. But yeah, so it's for freshwater aquariums, and it seems to be doing really well, especially for the plants. The Amazon sword seems to love it. Cryptocorin is doing really good. My pothos is really loving it. So actually, I think these hood lamps are a lot more expensive than LEDs because they use a lot more wattages and they heat up a lot. So I actually got this hood light at Petco because it was the only other place I could find it. Surprisingly, I think they're actually pretty rare nowadays. Most other places sell just LEDs nowadays. So for filtration, I use this hang-on back filter. I'm not sure how many gallons it pumps an hour, but yeah, it has biological filtration, mechanical, and chemical. It has activated carbon, and I don't really need that much chemical filtration for freshwater because there's not really anything dangerous that might go into it. Of course, it keeps the water pristine, clear. That's what I mainly like it for. But yeah, whenever I dose, say, leaf zone, I have to turn it off for like 30 minutes just to make sure, because the activated carbon does remove most of the trace elements that are being dosed. But yeah, it seems to be doing really well. I like the flow that it gives. I can't adjust the flow though. I change it every now and then. I need to actually change it now. I think I've had it up for about 3 months already, maybe a little less. But yeah, so the power head's in here, getting sucked up from right there. I got this filter from PetSmart, I believe, a while ago. It's a Top Fin brand. So from here, I guess I can move on to feeding. So I feed the fish probably twice a day. Yeah, twice a day for the most part. Around a little bit after the morning and then before night, like the evening. And for the guppies and the tetras, I like to feed them Tetramin. They love this stuff. Just give a pinch according to how many fish I have in here. And then I also like to give them a bit of beta fish food, because one time my little sister kept a beta and we lost him a while ago, so we still had the food. We didn't have anything to do with it, and I just give that to them as a treat. I also have this Top Fin brand that my mom co-worker actually gave me because she was removing her fish tank from her office, I believe, and she didn't need it anymore. And then of course I got the algae wafers that I give to the otocinclus every now and then that the fish will nip on to. And then lastly, I've given it to these guys, but they don't really seem to like it, and that's brine shrimp, because I used to have my yellow clown goby in my saltwater tank, but I don't have him or her anymore, and I just have the brine shrimp in my freezer, and I just like to give them a little bit. And the black neon tetra, they seem to love it. Sometimes the neon tetras, but the guppies, they'll just eat it and then spit it out, and it'll just go to the bottom to biodegrade. And yeah, I don't really like giving it to them because they don't seem to like it too often or too much. But yeah, so that's how feeding goes for the most part. When they're sick, sometimes I'll see like some of them swimming kind of funny. Usually that means that they have internal parasites, and what I'll do is I'll give them some garlic mixed with their food. That helps build their immune system, along with strengthen their digestive system to remove any parasites that could be inside their intestinal tract. So now moving on to decorations. I like to keep my tank looking as naturalistic as possible to the natural habitat. In the back I have rocks. I used to have like 3 of them stacked over here too, but then the rocks kept on tipping over, so I just let them fall naturally. I have this driftwood over here. The otocinclus loves to eat the algae off of it. I like to keep a little cave formation back there when the fish don't want to be seen. Then I have these little tube-like things that have fake algae growing on it, and the fish like to go in there and hide a little bit. I got some shells, some more rocks, and that one's the only decoration that's probably not natural looking, besides of course the pots. But I like to keep the clay pots in here because they say that bacteria loves to grow on it, or beneficial bacteria, and they'll help with the nitrogen cycle, of course. So yeah, and I got more fake plants. I forgot to mention this fake plant. Oh, my heater. So I got this Great Choice PetSmart heater brand that right now it's off because it's summer and the tank gets really hot. See? Water level. And it seems to be doing good. During the winter time I keep the tank around 78 degrees or 75 degrees, so it does good for me. And yeah, so that's most of the decorations I have in here. Invertebrates, I think I only have one invert, and those are the snails. These are bladder snails. They're basically everywhere. I like them, they're a good cleaning crew. I used to have ghost shrimp, but those guys, They never last too long for some reason. I think it's the pet store because over there they sell them as feeder fish or feeder live feeding, and they're not the best taken care for. So yes, that's mainly my tank update. I'm gonna get some more black neon tetras pretty soon. And yeah, I'll keep you updated. I think what I want to do when I'm older is in legacy for my Hillstream Loach. Her name was Breezy. I don't know if it was a male or female, but I named it Breezy because of my cousin. And yeah, I felt bad for it, so now in its legacy, when I'm older, I'm going to build a Hillstream specific Loach tank, hopefully, and make it cool looking, as naturalistic as possible, and to make the fish feel happy. So yeah, guys, if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.